About 3 years ago, I decided to go camping alone in a forest not too far from my town. I had been there before with friends, but this was the first time I was going alone. I honestly thought it would be relaxing. Just me, the trees, and complete silence. I arrived in the late afternoon. The forest was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels peaceful at first. I set up my small tent near a narrow trail and started a small fire to cook some food. By the time it got dark, the forest looked completely different. During the day it felt open and calm, but at night it felt like something was watching from every direction. Still, I told myself I was just overthinking. Around 10 p.m. I put out the fire and went inside my tent. For a while everything was normal. I could hear the wind moving through the trees and the occasional sound of branches cracking somewhere deep in the forest. Then suddenly, I heard footsteps. At first I thought it might be an animal, but the footsteps sounded slow and very deliberate, like someone was walking carefully around my campsite. I stayed completely still inside my sleeping bag listening. The footsteps stopped right outside my tent. My heart started racing. I grabbed my flashlight but didn't turn it on yet. I was hoping whoever it was would just leave. Then I heard something even worse. Someone whispered my name. Daniel. I froze. There was no way anyone here should know my name. I hadn't told anyone exactly where I was camping. For a moment I thought maybe I imagined it, but then it happened again. Daniel. This time the voice sounded closer, almost right next to the tent. My hands were shaking as I slowly reached for the zipper. I turned on the flashlight and opened the tent quickly. The beam of light scanned the trees around me. Nothing, just trees and darkness. But then I noticed something strange. About 20 feet away behind a tree, I could see someone standing there. The person didn't move. They were just standing there, watching. "Hey!" I shouted. No response. I took a few steps forward and shined the flashlight directly at them. And the second the light hit the tree, they stepped back and disappeared behind it. I walked closer, but when I reached the tree, no one was there. There were no footsteps, no sound, nothing. Just empty forest. At that point I decided I was done with camping for the night. I packed my things as quickly as I could and started walking back toward the trail that leads to the parking area, but the entire time I was walking, I could hear footsteps behind me. Not running, not chasing, just slowly walking, matching my pace. And the worst part, every time I stopped and turned around, the forest was completely empty. I didn't stop walking until I reached my car. Even now, I still think about that whisper in the forest, because the voice that called my name sounded exactly like my own voice. 2 summers ago, me and 2 of my friends went hiking deep into a forest trail that locals warned us about. Apparently, people had gotten lost there before, but we were young and stupid and thought it would be a fun adventure. The trail started normally enough. Birds, sunlight through the trees, and a clear dirt path. But after about 2 hours of hiking, we realized something strange. The trail had completely disappeared. The path we were following just ended. We checked our phones, but there was no signal. So we decided to keep walking in the same direction, hoping we would eventually find another trail. About 30 minutes later, we saw something strange between the trees. A small wooden cabin. It looked extremely old. The windows were broken and the door was hanging slightly open. None of us had seen anything like it on the map before. My friend Tyler suggested we check inside. Maybe someone lived there who could give us directions. Looking back now, that was a terrible idea. We pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air smelled terrible, like something rotten. The cabin was almost empty except for a dusty table and a few broken chairs. But on the wall, there were hundreds of scratch marks, deep marks carved into the wood, almost like someone had been trying to claw their way out. Then Tyler noticed something on the table. A small notebook. He opened it and started reading. The first few pages were normal, someone describing how they got lost in the forest, but the later pages became messy and panicked. One sentence kept repeating over and over. They are outside. They are outside. They are outside. Just as Tyler finished reading that line, we heard something outside the cabin. Footsteps. Multiple footsteps. Slowly walking around the building. We looked at each other, completely confused. No one else should have been that deep in the forest. The footsteps kept circling the cabin, back and forth, back and forth. Then suddenly, the doorknob started slowly turning. None of us waited to see who was on the other side. We ran out the back door and sprinted into the forest as fast as we could. Branches were hitting our faces and we didn't care where we were going. After about 15 minutes of running, we finally found the main trail again. We never went back to that forest. But sometimes I wonder something. If that notebook was telling the truth, then whoever wrote it was trapped in that cabin. And the thing outside the door was still waiting. Last winter I was driving home late at night, taking a shortcut through a forest road I didn't usually use. It was narrow, winding, and completely surrounded by dense trees. No streetlights, no houses, just endless darkness. I had been on that road a few times before, but something about this night felt different. The air was unusually cold, and a strange mist had started rolling between the trees, hugging the ground like it had a life of its own. As I drove slowly, my headlights cutting through the fog, I noticed something ahead. A woman was standing in the middle of the road. At first I thought it might be a hitchhiker, but as I got closer, something felt off. She wasn't moving at all. Her long white dress hung loosely and her hair completely covered her face. She didn't react to the car's lights or the engine sound. I slowed down and stopped about 10 feet away. My heart was pounding. I rolled down the window slightly, trying to speak. "Are you okay?" I called. No response. She just stood there, completely still. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something about her presence. It wasn't normal. I stepped out of the car cautiously, thinking maybe she needed help. "Do you need a ride?" I asked. Still nothing. Then I heard it, footsteps, multiple footsteps, coming from the edge of the forest. I froze. I turned my flashlight toward the trees on both sides of the road. The dense fog swirled around the trunks, but at first I couldn't see anything. Then slowly I noticed 3 tall, dark figures standing between the trees. They didn't move, but their presence was undeniable. Watching. The woman in the road hadn't moved either. But now the air felt heavier, almost suffocating. I could feel eyes on me from every side. Though I could barely see anything beyond the fog, panic set in. I stepped back toward my car. As I reached for the handle, I noticed the shadow slowly edging closer, moving silently through the mist. I slammed the door shut and locked it. My hands were shaking and my heart felt like it would burst out of my chest. I didn't dare look at the woman in the road again. But out of the corner of my eye I could feel her presence. I started the engine and tried to inch forward. The figures between the trees seemed to shift slightly as I moved. I kept my eyes glued to the road, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Suddenly, the woman in white lifted her head. I couldn't see her face, her hair still covered it, but I could feel her looking straight at me. I pressed the accelerator to the floor and drove as fast as I could. The headlights cut through the fog, illuminating the forest road in sharp, ghostly beams. Every shadow between the trees seemed to follow me. After a few minutes, the road finally straightened and the forest seemed to thin out. I glanced in the rearview mirror and I froze. For a split second, I thought I saw her reflection in the back window of my car. She wasn't in the road anymore, but it was as if she had slipped inside. I slammed the rearview mirror down and didn't look back again. My hands were trembling uncontrollably. I didn't stop until I reached the first town. I parked the car under a streetlight and sat there trying to catch my breath. The fog from the forest hadn't followed me, but the feeling of being watched. That stayed. To this day, whenever I drive near forests at night, I remember those three shadowy figures and the woman in white, standing silently in the road. Sometimes when the fog is thick and the road is empty, I swear I can still see her in the distance, just waiting.